pinnacle number 4. But this is only the halfway point of the season. He's on the inside of Sean Emmett. A wonderful, masterful piece of riding from Niall Mackenzie, a 37-year-old veteran. And that Ducati, Steve, is very quick.
Yeah, he didn't get a good drive out there. Mackenzie didn't come out the hairpin very quick, and we saw the Ducati gain as he went over the top of the hill, but Mackenzie...
Welcome to PetrolRevolt. So, if you guys follow our Facebook and our Instagram, you might have noticed we do a Hall of Fame every week on car and bike races. So now we're going to start bringing this to YouTube, and we're going to try and interview all the Hall of Fame riders, or the riders and drivers we think are worthy enough to come on our Hall of Fame. So this is our very first one, and we have a very, very special guest on this one, and he's actually rode a similar bike to what we featured earlier in the year, the Pepsi Suzuki. He rode it the year after when it turned to Lucky Strike Suzuki. So yeah, I think we should just crack on with it and introduce our guest.
Está dando Wayne Rainey, ahí está Niall Mackenzie, el hombre que ha sustituido a Kevin Schwantz en el seno del equipo Suzuki. Ahora están poniendo neumáticos.
So here we have the legend, 3 times British Superbike champion, wasn't it? Niall Mackenzie. 2 more times more than your son then.
Yeah, and I remind them every day.
So I've known Neil for a while, just throughout my career really. I can't remember what year I first met you, 2003, 2004 maybe?
Yeah, really early on. I remember, I probably told you this loads of times, but I remember seeing you on the Super Team bike at Open Park in the wet, and I was friends with a sponsor of yours called Kevin Newton,
yeah.
UK One People, and he was absolutely raving about this tiny kid that was going to be amazing. And then so I finally got to see you, and you were definitely tiny and you were pretty amazing that day as well, so got my attention. And then yeah, we met up pretty soon afterwards, and then yeah, been friends ever since.
Yeah, and also obviously Taz, he's not very big, is he? So
no, you're not much bigger now either.
He must have been a similar size to me when he rode a Super.
He was,
Team,
yeah, and I got to say he's a bit younger than you, and at the time I was, as a parent, I wasn't sure about little kids on big motorbikes, and it was so amazing to see, and everybody was getting into bikes really young, younger and younger. And as a parent, I wasn't sure about it. I didn't know if it was right, but not long after that, we've got Taz on a Super Team bike, which was a big bike for a little kid. As you know, they're actually too big.
Yeah.
The structures are much better now. But yeah, I had him on there, setting him off. I even stood on the grid with him, sometimes holding the bike. And as a parent, you just get sucked into it. And he loved it, you loved it, and we all loved it. And it was okay, but it is a little bit scary.
Yeah, it wasn't an ideal. I mean, it was a good class, but it wasn't an ideal motorbike to do it on, was it? Because they were big and heavy. And
it wasn't, but they taught you a lot of skills. They were great bikes, cheap to run, and you can't knock them out. Successful riders that have come out of the UK Super Team Championship.
Yeah. Well, like Casey Stoner come over and done it, and people like Chaz Davis and a load of people, didn't they? Come over to the UK to do. I mean, Brad Binder as well, didn't
Brad Binder, he was over. I actually bought Brad's old Super Team bike at one point. Rory Skinner's another kid that's in Moto2 World Championship now that was really good in Super Teams. So there's been loads over the years, and all doing really well.
Right, so we've got a few questions for you. So you were one of the very few racers to ride a Suzuki, a Honda and a Yamaha. Did anyone else actually do that, or?
Yeah, my only little claim to fame, fun fact, is that I was the only rider to be stand on the 500 Grand Prix podium in all 3 Japanese manufacturers' V4s, the Honda, Suzuki and the Yamaha. There was riders rode for each of the manufacturers. Randy Momola was one, and he was amazingly successful, didn't win the World Championship, but I was the only rider to finish on the podium in all the V4s, which was quite special.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a few other riders that did ride for all the manufacturers, but not on the V4s.
And what would you say was like the biggest the biggest difference between the manufacturers in their own different ways? So obviously you can have bikes with good engines and not so good chassis and that's what was the biggest difference?
It's a really interesting question, and there was a difference. The Honda, for example, take the bodywork off a Honda, and underneath everything is immaculate. The attention to detail, it's like a road bike. You take everything off, it's all immaculate. Everything's really well finished, and you can tell that they've got the biggest race department and the most money to spend and all the little details. And underneath the bodywork, it doesn't really matter as long as it works. But that was one thing you'd notice about the Honda. Riding the Honda, it was slightly different because it had a single crank V4, whereas the others, Yamaha and Suzuki, had twin cranks, so it delivered the power differently. It tended to rev the most, so it generally had the highest top speed. So tracks back then, Salzburg Ring in Austria, Hockenheim in Germany, the Honda was always the fastest through the speed trap. But there's always pluses and minuses. It wasn't so strong off the corners, it wasn't as nimble as the Suzuki and the Yamaha. So I guess its strong points was its top speed. The opposite side to quality was Suzuki. They've got a tiny race workshop, so you take the bodywork off a Suzuki and it's basically just a Friday afternoon job. Just get it finished, get the bodywork on it. It works, it's strong, and get it out there and get it racing. But the trouble with Suzuki was sometimes a little bit unreliable. It wasn't too bad when I rode it in 1990, but it was quite a fickle bike, and I'd say that's why Kevin Schwantz didn't win more world championships, because one weekend it'd be amazing, and then the next weekend you just couldn't get it to work. It wasn't great at every racetrack. So sometimes it was fast enough, sometimes it had good bottom power, sometimes it handled, but it didn't tend to be consistent. And for me that was a problem. But I think for Kevin Schwantz, who was at a higher level than me and fighting for race wins, he should have won more world championships. I think the bike just wasn't great everywhere. And the Yamaha was somewhere in between. Quite well finished, but a really nimble, nice handling bike. Definitely wasn't always the fastest, but when it wasn't the fastest, it was good through twisty stuff, tight, twisty racetracks. It worked really good. It was really neutral handling bike and a more user-friendly bike for everyone. So they were all different. The one thing, the thing that highlighted the Suzuki for me was I was always quite strong at Donington Park, and in '89 I led the British Grand Prix and I had a good run at the front, finished 4th. The next year I went on the Suzuki, and before that I had a couple of top 5 finishes on the Honda. And when I went in '90 on the Suzuki, I thought, this is my year, because I'd already had a couple of podiums. I knew Donington really well, I knew exactly what I wanted from the bike, and I was getting on well with the bike. Anyway, I went to Donington for 3 days. I struggled to get it around the racetrack, and I had the Japanese out looking, I had my crew chief working on everything. I couldn't figure it out, and it's just that was what highlighted its downside. A racetrack I knew I should have been fast at, and the bike just wouldn't work. Kevin Schwantz probably won that year, but that's why he's so special.
Yeah, but we've done an interview with Kevin, and that he said that with the Suzuki, like if you got it, it was so difficult to get it in that window. Yeah. But when you got it in that window, it was like an amazing bike. But to get it in that window was really difficult.
You're dead right, because other racetracks I went to, dreading it, Nürburgring, Yugoslavia, and I was on the podium, and I really thought, well, this could be a top 6, top 8 weekend, and then it was competitive from the first lap, and I didn't know why, and that was the mystery with Suzuki. It was an amazing piece of kit, but it just wasn't consistent at every racetrack.
That sort of leads into our next, my next couple of questions. Next one is, what was it like, and how was it being a teammate with Kevin, really, because he was a big personality, wasn't he, in the sport at that time, and he, his style and the way he went about racing was sort of incredible. So yeah,
he was Mr. Suzuki. Ironically, our Grand Prix careers started at the same time at the end of '86. We both did a wild card in Misano with Suzuki, with the Skull Bandit team on the Square 4 at the time. I had an amazing weekend, mainly because I was on Dunlops and he was on Michelin's. I didn't tell him that at the time, but I was much stronger than him. Anyway, I went off to Honda and he went to Suzuki. But yeah, he became Mr. Suzuki. He was winning races and he was an amazing talent. So the focus was on him. I'm pretty sure I had equal machinery. There was no problem with that. But that time there was an A list and B list on the Michelin tyre thing, and each factory rider. There was one rider from each factory chosen to get the best tyres that were coming through because they were developing them quite quickly. And then, so I would always start on the B tyres. Sometimes on a Sunday, if there was some tyres left, Kevin hadn't used them up or the other riders hadn't used them up, you get them. But as you know, that was not always ideal. You get a tyre that's got more grip on the rear, it pushes the front. Kevin, there's no denying he was at a higher level than me. I struggled a little bit with the tyre thing, and that was a bit frustrating because I know some racetracks, certainly I was on a par with them. But then it's up to the B rider to break through. Mick Doohan was one of these riders and he managed to kind of break through and become number one in the team. So, but that was the main difference and quite frustrating. And now with a single tyre rule for everyone, it's so much fairer and it gives everyone an equal chance, and that's something I would have loved back in the day.
Yeah, and what was the difference between going from a square 4 to a V4?
The V4 had more power, but it was more aggressive. The square 4 was like a big, comfy armchair. I was given my first 500 ride at the Grand Prix at Silverstone in '86. I'd never sat on a 500 before. I qualified, I think, 12th, and I finished 7th. And it rained for the race, and I never raced one. I'd definitely never ridden one in the wet before. I got on this thing and I basically just rode it round. I was riding 250s at the time. I just rode it round and round, and I never had a moment. It stuck to the tarmac. It was pouring rain all day long, and I finished 7th, and I had a lot of good riders behind me. It was so easy to ride. And that was the same bike I went to Misano with when I was with Kevin. Qualified 3rd in Misano in the dry. The very last race, the official factory team ran a square 4, and it was brilliant. Again, it was on Dunlops, which helped, but it was an easy bike to ride. When the V4s come along, they had more power, so you're obviously going faster, but it was a smaller, more aggressive power band, and that was the high sides basically just got higher at that point, especially young riders that are trying to make a mark and not that much experience. That was the thing. They were just, Wayne Gardner describes it perfectly on the unridables. You're in a corner and you know that feeling. Even in a 125, you just go, oh, I'm right in the edge, but I want to open the throttle a little bit more, and you think, I wonder what will happen, and the next thing you know, you're upside down. It's such a fine line with grip on the edge of the tyre and then the thing spitting you off, but that's what you do. And the bigger bikes, definitely the Americans and Australians coming from flat track background had more feel and they could time things better than the Europeans, but that was the tricky bit, just getting it right.
And that year, 1990, what happened? Because I noticed you rode. Did you ride a couple of 250 Grand Prix at the first 2 rounds, wasn't it? And then you was on the 500. So was your now I was good friends with Gary Taylor, and I know that there was a problem with Gobert. Was that year or
no?
Because I didn't know what had happened.
No, what happened that year? Yeah, Suzuki gave me the kind of the break in 500 GPs, and I defected to Honda, which wasn't popular at the time. But in 1990, I ended up with no ride in the winter, and I bought my own 250 Yamaha and entered 250 GPs. I had a little team around me, so I went off 250 racing. I did the first 2 GPs in the 250 class, and then Kevin McGee, who was Kevin Schwantz's teammate, got injured at Laguna Seca, and his ride became available, and Gary Taylor, team manager, got in touch and asked if I could get out my 250 deal, which I could, and then I rode the bike from the 3rd round in the season onwards.
And you finished the year with him as well, didn't you?
Finished the year, an amazing year. I finished every race, a couple of podiums, a really strong season, and even the end of the season went to a good size international race at Sugo, and Kevin and I finished 1st and 2nd. So yeah, it's my most successful year in 500 GPs, and yeah, and really enjoyable. And then I got sacked.
But that was your bet. You finished 4th in the championship that year, didn't you?
Yeah. Kevin was 2nd, and I was 4th.
And I'll tell you what, the other amazing fact about you was your first full-time year in Grand Prix racing in the 500s. You went to Suzuki, didn't you? And you stuck it on pole. Yeah,
on the Honda, and again you'll know, every time you get in the bike, you just ride the wheels off it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it didn't. I definitely had no clue what I was doing, but I always got on well at Suzuka. I liked the feel of the track, and I tested there a bit. And we had a good run through practice, and I ended up on pole for my first ever 500 GP with Honda. So yeah.
Oh, I bet that pleased Honda, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It did up until race day, and then it rained. And it was actually going all right in the rain. I come through the field, and I was 3rd, looking at a podium, done and dusted on the last lap, and fell off at the spoon corner. I didn't know at the time, but I thought I was under a bit of pressure from behind. I never looked behind, and it was the one time I should have looked behind because there was no one there, and top to front. And so Honda were over the moon with me till the last lap of the race, and then I realised, actually, being a factory rider, because up until that point I just sailed through my career, and I was in this amazing factory team, and I was just, everyone thought I was wonderful, but that night nobody spoke to me, and I realised then, oh shit, yeah, that's when you start getting paid properly to race, you're supposed to deliver on a Sunday. So
it's a tough world, isn't it? You know, some, especially if you're out there on your own as well, and then you just get left, you're sitting in your hotel. And you put enough pressure on yourself as a racer,
you're devastated.
And it's like you don't really need anyone else. But when you get to like you say, when you're getting paid and from a factory and you're a factory, right?
Well, I thought, I suppose when I fell off, I thought, well, just I've crashed. But when I got back to the garage, Mr. Aguma, the HRC boss, he basically helped me get into the team, and was really supportive. And I got back to the garage, and he was one of the first people I saw, and he went, well, you've only made one mistake this weekend, but it wasn't a good one, and he just walked away. And I always struggled with, I need a couple of days, because like I say, you're back in your hotel room, you feel like crap, and I see a lot of riders, Taz is one of them, he will bounce back in half an hour, he's like over it and he's on with it, and I really admire him for that, but I couldn't. I was like 2 days of deep depression, and then I'd be alright, but I would just hammer myself mentally, and then I'd come back okay. But it's that was a big one, and it definitely had a big effect on my mentality, my career. Well, the next round, I went to Jerez, and they all said, "Oh, don't fall off." I'm like, I'm not going to fall off. It's the last thing you want to hear. And I finished 4th, and it was okay. And again, a podium was on from the last lap, and it didn't quite happen. I went over the line, finished 4th. I came back, and still nobody. That's the difference riding for Honda. It's so serious, it's so corporate. Come in the garage, and I went, well, at least you brought it home. And it wasn't like, that's good. It's every rider's different, and I needed someone to say, that's good, we've got a 4th, we'll go to the next one, and we'll get on the podium, whatever. But it was like, well, at least you brought it home. It was like, all right. And I look now, and I think finishing 4th in your second race wouldn't be too bad. 2 rounds later, I was on the podium in Austria, and I had a really good ride, and I was pumped, but I still wasn't good enough. They're saying, well, you've only got 7 more chances to win. I'm like, Jesus, I'm like, it's not what I expected. So it was like serious pressure.
And I suppose the thing is, now things have moved on. Like 9 times out of 10, the rider has someone by their side. Someone telling them, don't worry, it'll be all right. They got that one person next to them trying to help them, but then it wasn't like that, was it? It was a different era, wasn't it? You were sort of there on your own. Even if you had a girlfriend with you or a wife, it was sort of frowned upon almost, wasn't it? And
well, I was okay like that, but that is the trick, being able to deal with it mentally. I was okay, but I basically had no experience. I could have done with a bit of a mentor type there that maybe had a bit of experience, and say, look, just have a bit of strategy in the race, because I was just getting on the bike and riding the wheels off it, because I was club racing a couple of years before that, so I didn't know any different. But that's the way it was, and it could have been a lot better, but it could have been a lot worse as well.
So out of the three manufacturers, what do you think was the most reliable and best setup?
I was 2 years with HRC, and my second year at HRC I was more familiar with the bike. I loved the bike. Wayne Gardner won the championship the year before and hated the bike the next year. I absolutely loved it, and a lot of the feedback came from me, as although I didn't have any experience, I was continually being asked what I wanted. So the 88 bike was a dream bike for me, but it broke down. One thing I asked for, I always wanted more RPM, I think, growing up with two strokes, and so this thing came at the beginning of 1988 and it had like another 1500 or 2000 RPM, but it kept breaking cranks. And I was not scared to rev it as well, but when it was good, it was really good, and they decided middle of the year it just revved too much, and it was unreliable. So myself and Gardner that year had, I think, 3 DNFs with engine failure. So if I had to go back, and that was the bike that was suiting me the best, and I loved riding it, and it was because I had a bit of continuity. I had 2 years on it, and the team kind of got behind me and I was a bit more familiar. So, and it was fast, and racing always loves a fast bike. If you're kind of struggling a bit elsewhere, you know, if you've got a decent straight, you can grab a bit back, but it actually worked quite good everywhere, so I would choose a Honda.
And what was your best moment in that era, and your best and your worst moment?
First podium, because podiums are important. Fourth's nice, but so my first podium in Austria was nice, and a really good race with Gardner and Momola that day. So that was like, I kind of feel like I made a step then. So that was a highlight. Actually, later on, I had a couple of good runs at British Grand Prix, and I finished third on a Rock Yamaha in '93 with a private team, a private American team, and that was actually really nice just to get a podium. I always wanted a podium at a home Grand Prix, so that was like probably the second best part. So podiums are always special, your best results, or having a good day, and always have a good day. I'll definitely have a good party that night afterwards, so that was a given. So yeah, both these race days and nights afterwards were pretty memorable.
And what I suppose that was even sweeter, wasn't it, doing it with a privateer team as well?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, to be fair, the Yamaha was good. We got good support from Yamaha. Chassis was good. It was as good as the factory Yamaha bike. Again, it was a bit of a and B tyre situation, so I was on Dunlops, so maybe not the best Dunlops, but performance wise the bike was as good as everyone else around me, but it was sweet. It was just the home Grand Prix thing was quite special.
Yeah. And what was your favourite track and your least favourite track? I'm
going to say Suzuka, because Suzuka's a figure of 8, and it's got a really good balance. The reason I got the Honda job was they invited me out there to just have a look at me and test, and I basically had half a day to impress them. I so nearly crashed so many times, but I really loved the track and I was up to speed really quick. I don't learn tracks, I didn't feel like I learned tracks that quick, but Suzuka I felt really good straight away, and so I loved the GP there, I loved the 8-hour race there. It's just a nice track, and it was good to me. My least favourite track, not because I didn't like it, because I did love it, but I just struggled with it, was Spa in Belgium, where you've been. Yeah. And it tended to rain a lot there, and it was super fast and really scary, and I had a few little crashes at the hairpin there, but I seen some big crashes. Frankie Kelly had a huge one out of the back one year, and I seen some big crashes in front of me, and I thought, as much as I was thinking I was committing, I know my head was saying open the throttle, or my wrist was saying open the throttle, and my head was saying no, close it, and so I just had some average rides there, but I really loved the racetrack, but I didn't feel it there, which was a shame, but it was an amazing track.
Yeah, that's one thing with Spa. You love the track, but it's fast, isn't it?
You've got to give it respect, and I admired people like Schwantz would commit, and he just had that riding style that he was able to commit, and he had feel going on, and I didn't have the feel he had, especially in the front end, and these guys just seemed to the riding style worked better and mine didn't. I had some decent runs there on a 250, but it was a lot slower than the 500. I got there at 500, it just blew my mind, the speed. And like I said, I've seen a few riders have big ones, but I don't really want that to be me.
Yeah. So the next one, you might have answered this one already because you've mentioned about the parties after the racing. So now it doesn't happen so often, does it? But so that era or the current era?
For me, it was just the way it was then. It's just different. Now I like it now because it's very clinical. You know where you are with training, and for me now, because the information's out there, I could be a better rider and I could be a more successful rider, and I would commit to not drinking. Not I was drinking during the season, but we had a few big nights. So I like the way it is now, although it's probably tougher to make it now and there's less opportunities. But I do like the way it's structured, the one make tyre roll. The bikes are all really similar, so if you're a good enough rider, you'll make an impression. But the other side of that is it's pretty clinical in the paddock. There's riders don't share the same, teammates don't share the same hotels. There's not a lot of kind of interaction with riders in the paddock. We were definitely good friends we're just bitter rivals on the track, but really good mates Sunday night. And whether it was more dangerous or everyone was just glad to survive the weekend, I don't know, but we're definitely good buddies off the bikes. And then depending on who was kind of battling with who, they would keep the distance. But and then certainly now, the day we all finish racing, everybody's just really good mates. But it was, everybody would party hard and ride hard, and it was just mega fun from beginning of the season to the end, really.
Yeah. What bikes do you own and you ride now? I know you do instruction, don't you? You doing?
Yeah.
We've done a bit of work together at Silverstone and that. But so what do you ride, or what bikes have you got?
I'm very lucky that I've got my 1992 YZR 500. I don't ride it an awful lot. It lives at Silverstone, and I've got my Cadbury's Boost bike that I won my first championship on, and then bikes changed slightly. But so I've got two really nice race bikes from my career. Apart from that, I'm a bit of a kind of late 70s, early 80s two-stroke fan, so I've got a couple of 350 LC Yamahas. I've got a Fizzy, which was like my 16er special that gave me freedom. And that's pretty much it really. I've got a 98 R1 that I've restored, so but I don't actually have an everyday road bike, but I'm very lucky that I've got some good connections and dealer friends that'll loan me a demo if I need to go anywhere. So I do like to ride on the road and do a fair bit when the weather's good, but there's nothing in the garage that's ready to go apart from my LCs.
Right, and this is going to be the last question.
Okay, hit me.
I don't know how much you can say, but what was the best after party you've been to?
There was a few. They're all really good for different reasons, but I'll talk you through the Salzburg one, which is my first podium, was just massive, and that was no one really knew me then, and they certainly never socialised with me. And then, because I do like, don't mind what I did back then, didn't mind the party. So there's like every race there seemed to be somewhere you went to on the Sunday night. So there was a hotel top of the hill in the Salzburg ring in Austria. We all went to. We went there for dinner, and then somebody got Gary Taylor, Suzuki team manager's room number, because they were staying there. It's probably Rob McElnay. Shouldn't really mention that. And so his room got, suddenly it was free bar. So that's not, and for a Scotsman that's not ideal. So everyone got drinks. So I was like this amazing, generous new guy in the paddock and finishing the podium, so I must be a half decent rider. So everyone was there: Lawson, Momola, Gardner. Schwantz wasn't there because he wasn't there in '87. Don't think he was there then. Didier de Rodrigues, lots of Rob Mack. He was kind of my partner in crime, and he couldn't drink. But so I remember that night someone appeared with a permanent marker for autographs or something, and somebody kept it. So we ended up, everybody like Rob Mack was riding for Yamaha, so he had Honda across his forehead, I had Suzuki across my forehead. Everyone had the wrong manufacturer on their forehead. People were drawing things on people's faces, so no one knew what they had in their face. It was one of them, you had to be there, but it was absolute carnage. Pretty sure my wife got upset with me at one point and got a slap. I'd never been slapped too many times since we've been together. And then we left there, and it was back down the paddock, and it all carried on in the motorhomes. And Lawson had a decent Ford Travel American motorhome. His was chosen for the party that night. And I remember bottles of Baileys everywhere. Everybody piled in there as well. His fridge got emptied. There was prosciutto and salami up the walls. He was enjoying it as much as anyone, and he's like looking at me, just pointing, "Cause you're mental." But he was laughing, and there was no more. We weren't wrecking it intentionally, but it did get wrecked. So that was the big night, and the next day, his driver Mick Roberts, bless him, passed away now, was told to take it to Munich and get it completely refurbished because the inside was absolutely trashed. I didn't actually see the aftermath because we were all wrecked by that point, but that was a kind of full-on night. It was pretty much from when we got off the bikes till 3 in the morning or something. So
I suppose it's lucky there wasn't social media around, isn't it?
No, it's good. I'm pretty sure there's some pictures floating around, but it was all done in the best taste, and no one got injured, fun. No one was upset. Just cost Eddie a few dollars to get his motorhome fixed, but we never had the party in his motorhome again. So someone else got it the next day. But that was, lots of different parties, but that was a kind of typical example. But yeah, all good.
So that's the end of our first interview. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and also drop a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview next. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our website, because that way you'll see our future up and coming events. We've got some exciting ones coming soon. So yeah, get subscribed up and keep following us.
On his way to title number 4, but this is only the halfway point of the season. He's on the inside of Sean Emmett. A wonderful, masterful piece of riding from Niall Mackenzie, the 37-year-old veteran, and that Ducati, Steve, is very quick.
Yeah, he did